It began with a silence that spoke louder than words, a silence that carried the weight of something forbidden, something meant to stay hidden forever. When Bai Lu wrote that letter, she never imagined anyone else would see it. Every line she penned was a secret fragment of her heart, sealed away with the kind of honesty that only exists in solitude. But destiny, as it often does, had other plans. The letter that was meant for Dylan Wang found its way into the wrong hands, and the moment Miles Wei read it, everything changed. Stay until the end, because what happened after will leave you breathless. Every emotion, every unspoken truth, every tear that was never meant to fall is finally coming to light, and by the time you reach the last word, you will understand why this letter has shaken the internet to its core. It all started on a quiet afternoon. Bai Lu was filming in a secluded set outside the city, her mind distracted, her heart caught between what was real and what was long gone. The crew noticed she had been withdrawn lately, often writing during breaks, lost in thought, her gaze distant. No one questioned it. Everyone assumed it was a script, perhaps notes for her next performance. But it wasn't. What she was writing was a confession she could never say out loud, a message she hoped Dylan Wang would one day read when the timing was right. The letter itself was written on delicate ivory paper, her handwriting elegant but trembling, as if every word cost her something to admit. She folded it carefully, sealed it inside a small envelope, and slipped it into the back of her script binder. She planned to send it later that week, quietly, without anyone knowing. But that night, as she left the set early, she forgot the binder on the table. That single mistake would become the spark that ignited a storm. Miles Wei, who had arrived later for a reshoot, noticed the binder. Thinking it was part of the day's work, he picked it up. When he opened it, a faint piece of folded paper slipped out and landed at his feet. He bent down, hesitated, and for a moment, something inside him told him to walk away. But curiosity has a way of overpowering reason, and before he knew it, the seal was broken. The moment he began to read, the atmosphere shifted. The words weren't just sentences. They were raw emotion carved onto paper. Bai Lu's letter spoke of memories she had tried to bury, of nights she couldn't sleep, of feelings she pretended were gone but had only grown deeper with time. She wrote about Dylan Wang's smile, the one that used to calm her even in chaos, and how every time she saw him on set, she felt the ache of a past that refused to fade. She confessed that she still waited, even when she told herself she wouldn't, that her heart still reached for him in moments of quiet, when no one was watching. She wrote about the fight they never resolved, the apology that came too late, and the look in his eyes the last time he walked away. Every word was drenched in regret, longing, and a love that had never truly died. By the time Miles reached the last line, his hands were trembling. The letter ended with a single haunting sentence that echoed in his mind long after he put it down. "I never stopped loving you, even when I told myself I had to." The air around him felt heavy, almost unreal. He sat there for minutes, maybe hours, unable to move. He wasn't supposed to see it, yet he couldn't unread it. That letter was more than a confession. It was a soul laid bare. And in that moment, Miles realized he had crossed an invisible line between friendship and betrayal. The next morning, everything spiraled. Someone from the crew had seen Miles holding the letter, and whispers spread faster than wildfire. By noon, rumors were everywhere. People speculated what was written inside, who it was meant for, and why Miles looked so shaken when he arrived on set. Bai Lu sensed it instantly. The glances, the awkward silence, the way people avoided her eyes. When she found her binder missing, her heart dropped. And when Miles finally approached her, letter in hand, her world stopped. She froze when she saw it, the same ivory paper now slightly creased from his grip. He didn't speak at first. He simply extended the letter toward her, his expression unreadable. She took it slowly, her fingers trembling as if she already knew what was coming. "Did you read it?" she asked softly. Miles hesitated before nodding. That single gesture shattered the fragile calm that surrounded them. The look in her eyes turned from fear to disbelief, then to quiet devastation. She turned away, tears she refused to show slipping down her cheek. "You weren't supposed to," she whispered. The set fell into an eerie silence. No one moved, no one spoke. The letter that was meant for Dylan had become a wound exposed to the world. And yet, what no one expected was what happened next. Later that evening, Dylan Wang himself arrived. Word had already reached him. He found Bai Lu sitting alone under the studio lights, the letter clutched tightly in her hand. He didn't speak for a long time. The air between them was thick with years of unspoken words. Finally, he stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never stopped waiting either," he said. That was the moment everything broke, the tension, the silence, the walls they had built around themselves. Bai Lu looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. Dylan reached out, gently taking the letter from her trembling hands. He unfolded it, read it in silence, and when he looked back at her, something changed. The distance that had once felt endless between them disappeared. Miles, standing in the doorway, watched the scene unfold with quiet remorse. He had meant to expose something so personal, yet in doing so, he had unknowingly become the bridge that brought two broken hearts back together. He left quietly, leaving the two to face the truth that had waited too long to be spoken. That night, Bai Lu and Dylan stayed long after everyone had gone. The studio lights dimmed, but the glow between them remained. They talked for hours about the past, the mistakes, and the moments they never forgot. By the time dawn crept through the windows, the silence between them was no longer painful. It was peaceful. The letter that was never meant to be read became the catalyst for everything they had been too afraid to face. And though the world would go on speculating, the truth was simple. Sometimes, the most painful exposure leads to the most beautiful revelation. In the end, the letter wasn't just a confession. It was closure, it was truth, and it was the doorway to a love that had never truly ended. And for those who watched the story unfold, one thing was certain. This was not just another scandal. It was a reminder that even the secrets we try to bury have a way of finding their light. So, if you ever find yourself holding back the words your heart is too afraid to say, remember the story. Because sometimes, the words we hide are the ones that save us. The silence that followed was unlike any other silence Bai Lu had ever known. It wasn't empty. It was heavy, filled with the echo of words that were never meant to be read aloud. Miles Wei still stood there, the folded letter trembling between his fingers, his eyes refusing to meet hers. The set lights were dim now, the crew long gone, leaving only the flickering glow of the street lamps that leaked through the studio windows. Bai Lu took a step forward, her voice almost breaking as she whispered his name. "Miles, please, give it back." But Miles didn't move. His breath was uneven, his voice low, almost cracked as he said, "I didn't mean to read it. It fell out of your bag. I tried not to, but when I saw Dylan's name, I couldn't stop myself." Her heart sank deeper than she thought it could. The letter was supposed to remain unseen, buried in the pages of her journal forever. It was the only piece of truth she ever allowed herself to write, words she could never speak, even to herself without trembling. "Tell me it isn't true," Miles asked. "Tell me you didn't still love him after everything he did." Bai Lu froze. The air felt like it was closing in on her. For the first time in years, she didn't have a script to hide behind. The letter had betrayed her. "It wasn't supposed to be found," she whispered, her voice faint, eyes glistening with a quiet kind of pain. Miles turned away, running his fingers through his hair, the weight of what he'd just read clinging to him like dust he couldn't shake off. "You wrote that you still see him in every role you play. You wrote that every time you smile on camera, it's him you imagine." Bai Lu didn't reply. Her silence was an answer in itself. He let out a shaky breath. "So all this time I thought you moved on, that I had a chance, but it was always him, wasn't it?" Bai Lu looked down at her hands, unable to meet his eyes. "It's not about having a chance, Miles. It's about never truly letting go. Some feelings don't die just because you want them to. They stay hidden like that letter." Miles' expression softened, his anger fading into something far more fragile. But he looked at her with a kind of helpless admiration, a deep sadness that came from understanding too late. You should tell him, he said quietly. Dylan deserves to know what you really felt. Bai Lu smiled faintly. You don't tell ghosts how much they still haunt you, Miles. And yet, fate has its way of unearthing what's buried. That night, someone uploaded a photo of the letter online. No one knew who did it. Maybe someone from the crew had found the discarded pages. Maybe Miles had left it behind. But by morning, the internet was ablaze. Bai Lu's secret letter to Dylan Wang. Confession from the past revealed. Was this about their rumored breakup? The hashtags flooded every platform. Fans started analyzing every line. Some cried. Some refused to believe it was real. And Dylan, halfway across the world, sitting in a dim hotel room after a long day of filming, saw it. He read every word, every broken sentence, every tear-stained confession she never meant for him to see. His hands trembled as he whispered her name under his breath, a name that still had power over him even after all these years. The next day, the world saw what they thought they'd never see again. Dylan Wang standing at Bai Lu's set, unannounced, holding a single white envelope in his hand. She froze when she saw him. The cameras went silent. Crew members looked away. He walked up to her slowly, placed the envelope on the table, and said softly, I read your letter. And this is mine. She didn't move for a long time. When she finally opened it, her fingers shook just like his did hours before. Inside were 3 simple lines. I never stopped waiting. I only stopped hoping you'd ever write. A tear slipped down her cheek, but this time, she didn't hide it. Dylan stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper. You should have told me sooner. Bai Lu looked at him, the years of distance collapsing in a single glance. If I had, would it have changed anything? He smiled faintly. Maybe not. But it would have hurt less knowing we both felt the same. The director shouted that the scene was ready, but neither of them moved. For once, the cameras weren't needed. The emotion was real. As the sun dipped below the skyline, they stood side by side, no longer actors in a scripted story, but 2 people finally confronting what they had been running from for too long. The letter that wasn't supposed to be read had rewritten everything. And though the world kept spinning with rumors and theories, for Bai Lu and Dylan, that moment wasn't for the fans or the headlines. It was for them. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. For the first time, the story had an ending, but not a goodbye. What if the letter you hide becomes the truth the world needs to see? Watch till the end to uncover how one secret confession changed everything between Bai Lu, Dylan Wang, and Miles Wei, and why this might be their most emotional moment ever.